2, 1, go.
Bingo, we are live. Welcome to the happiness course and our interpretation and what we offer to you is the journey through the world of confusion and darkness. And together we both offer a light and a vision of how different cultures can you come together on particular issues and show how we can be enlightened. And yes, we're going to have disagreements as well, and we'll go through that, which is the natural course of reality, and having different folks on our planet will always be different ideas. But instead of using fisticuffs to interact with disagreement, we will instead use words and be passionate, yes, but words fundamentally are the building block of debate, humanity, community, and culture.
Agreed. So, and we're on like different continents right now, so we can't do the fisticuff thing at the moment. That was a joke.
You wait.
Even when we're both in Hyde Park, we still don't do that. Anyway, so should we go on? Any more to the intro?
Well, I just want to add and declare officially
how
lovely your backdrop is.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Here in Jordan, they like things being shiny and stuff, and they like gold in the wallpaper, and so thank you.
Beautiful.
All right, so first question started, shall we? Let's do it. All right, so hopefully it's going to be a lot of fun, right? I'm not sure how this is going to go, but I like pushing the limits, so let's do it. So truth. That's kind of so as we go through this happiness course, there are lots of fundamental things that are worth talking about that help you become happy, and this week is about truth. And for the first half at least, and then we've got a second question, which is I think pretty much the same topic but in a different angle, isn't it? The way you've posed your question. But anyway, would you change your religion, right? And that's a really important question, because we don't want to be in a place where we're just debating for the sake of it and never ever changing our minds. We're not like the Houses of Parliament where we're just here to make noise and not learn anything. I hope that's not what it is. And from knowing Dust, it's been really interesting, and a lot of interesting people in Speaker's Corner. I'm looking forward to getting back there again. I'm in Jordan here, by the way. So let's get on with it. So I don't want to just academically talk about it. I want to motivate people to be able to accept truth, be excited about accepting truth. So the first thing as my sort of intro is why care about the truth. And there's one, and as a Muslim, I'm always excited and motivated, particularly from teachings of Islam regarding all these different topics, and in this one in particular, there's a saying of Prophet Muhammad that I really think distinguishes the people I know who are really excited about life and those who are not, and that is, a seeker after knowledge among the ignorant is a living person among the dead. So this is not literally a person who's alive, and literally somebody who's dead. It's like, in terms of feeling, like, I feel alive doesn't mean you weren't alive a second ago. When you feel alive, when you're really alive, you feel it in your soul, is what I mean. So what's that got to do with a seeker after truth? So first of all, let me kind of, why would you say this fancy kind of terminology, a seeker after truth? Why not somebody who learned stuff? And so a seeker after truth is not somebody who simply doesn't care about the world they're living in, or somebody who thinks they know it all. It's somebody who's actively looking for the truth. There's a really different kind of personality. So do you get what I'm saying? Like, if you don't care about anything, you're not going to be searching for the truth, right? What do you think? And then if you think you know it already, there's some people like, I'm just too smart, don't tell me anything. That's not a seeker after truth. They've ended their learning process by thinking they know it all already. What do you think so far? Have I lost you at all? In terms of
Definitely
definition
lost me.
have I lost
Definitely
you?
lost me. No, I think that's very intriguing, and I think that
I haven't
seekers
yet
of
explained why that's useful in becoming, happy and stuff. But I'm just making sure we're on the same page about in terms of a seeker after truth is not. Well, sorry, I interrupted. Go on.
it's very easy to be content in
Yes.
life, and content, unfortunately, is for me personally, my view on it, is the death of the human being. Once you become content, you sort of dismiss all other interesting new angles of reality through whether it be religious or art or human investigation. And so contentment really is, I'm probably a bit dramatic when I said it was the death of the human, by the way. But my point, what I'm trying to say, is that it is quite a dangerous existence to have, is to be content. So seeking truth, therefore, implies by the seeking bit, life is always going to be a bit of a turmoil, turmoil involved in that, because walking down a road can lead to all sorts of unknown adventures that may happen down there. And obviously, we were talking metaphysical, and enlightenment can be as dangerous as a boulder coming straight for you, because it can be as impacted and as impactive as a boulder. I mean, it's not easy learning, and
Yeah.
it's easy being content.
Yeah. Sure. So I'll give two, and as always, I always try to use psychological terminology or understanding that comes from psychology rather than just saying whatever I feel like, making up stuff. So seekers after truth have a growth mindset. So, and if you've ever heard of a growth mindset, it's this attitude where you're not scared of learning new things or contradicting what you know already. And this is it's probably a good term to look up if you've never heard of growth mindset. Okay, and I would say it's key to happiness. So why would that be? So the opposite of growth mindset is a fixed mindset, okay, where people avoid making mistakes, right? So that would obviously be that. But why would people avoid making mistakes? Because they worry what others think, right? Why would you care about making mistakes? It's not a big deal. Everybody makes a mistake, but a lot of people do care about that. They just don't venture out into new ideas because, like, oh, I might just be wrong. So that kind of thinking is what I call the slave mindset, where you really care about what other people think. Okay, and that's definitely not going to be a path to happiness. While the growth mindset is a hunger for learning, and I love to describe that. As opposed to the slave mindset, I like to describe that as the tourist mindset. So hopefully, if you like traveling, you might appreciate that terminology. Like when you're a tourist, it's like, whoa, wow, that's new. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's different. It's not like, that's different. Oh my gosh, scary, I'm going to run away. It's like, that's different. That's really interesting. That's the growth mindset. And so you can see that kind of mentality is going to be an exciting way of approaching life. If you're not like that, if you like, oh, I know it all, or I'm not interested in the world, that's a really boring, tiny little world. So I would encourage people, this first bit is just trying to encourage people not to be scared and trying to get people into sort of excitement of wanting to learn and be intrepid, as it were, not scared of learning, but excited about learning. So that's one thing. So growth mindset usually is associated with being happy because, it's the opposite of having a slave mindset. Another reason why seekers after truth would be more alive, because that's another way of saying happy. What have I got here? They want to know how to make things better. You don't just seek the truth for no reason. There's a purpose. And what I've probably mentioned a number of times is where happiness comes from is meaning. Okay? And you get meaning by trying to make things better. Hopefully this doesn't sound too weird, but Viktor Frankl has explained, he's a very famous psychologist on the ranks of Freud. He said, to have happiness, you need meaning. Okay, and I think not many people would really dispute that. It's not that just people just don't think about it, right? It's like, why am I doing this? If there's a reason for what you're doing, then you feel excited, you feel passion and things like that, right? So to have, by seeking the truth, that means you have a wish deep down. You don't seek the truth for no reason. You have a wish to make things better. Otherwise, it would be pointless seeking the truth. It would be just academic, pointless. And we're not talking about academic because we've already distanced ourselves. That the seekers after truth are not people who think they know it all already or trying to be clever. These people are genuinely seeking new ideas. So what I'm trying to relate is seekers after truth are necessarily going to be happier people because they've got a mission in life to make things better. And if you've got a mission in life to make things better, that means you have meaning in your life. And according to Viktor Frankl, that means you are going to be a happier person because you've got meaning in your life. How did you understand that? Was that really hard to understand? What do you think, Dust?
Well, I think seekers of the truth are fundamentally going to be unhappy people.
Unhappy
Anybody that has committed themselves to this path that you have described will fundamentally be unhappy because that means they are going to be observing and understanding realities that about them, around them, and expanding upon that rather than being controlled by that. And as you said, be slaves. The reason why slaves are so happy to be slaves, a lot of them throughout history, is because they live in a world that is, as you've just described, it doesn't go down any path of seeking truth. It does the opposite of that. It's comforting. It is constant, and tradition could be used as a form of slavery as well. I mean, that's a whole different debate that we can have. But fundamentally, if you're a slave that's going, actually, I want to seek truth, and therefore motivate yourself and grow, that means having to question all the things around you that exist, all these wonderful things that you've all lived with from childhood through to adolescence, through to becoming an adult. All of that has to be questioned, and all of that has to be interpreted, not to get rid of it, just to clarify that, but it's just to understand its purpose, how it was developed, conceived, and became part of our norm that we experience all around us. So for me, I'll just make one more point.
Go on.
So for me, personally, as the seeker of truth, which is what I was always, by the way, it is always having to be asking questions of reality around us, regardless of who it is or what it is, and that's going to land you in a lot of trouble. As long as you do it. One more point. Sorry.
I thought I keep thinking you're finished. Sorry, go on.
Last point, but my bedrock, if I should explain, isn't just to annoy people. It is just to merely understand reality around us, and can it be improved, and can compassion, love, understanding, and community, can these facets all be used, which I believe they can, to express this, express what I believe. There you go, finished.
Okay, cool. So I think there's a difference between something being hard, which I do think seeking truth is hard, while at the same time, I don't think that makes you miserable. And you can die fighting for the truth, as many people have. But I would say they fundamentally have a much more fulfilling, and it doesn't look like it's exciting, but it's happier. So, for example, a person, what's his name? Martin Luther King. He said, so he famously got assassinated, right? And he said, if you haven't found a struggle, I can't remember exact words, a struggle worth dying for, you're not really living. So he committed to, and he probably knew, given the times that he was living through, that his life was in constant danger. So it wasn't like big surprise that he eventually got assassinated. It's not great that it was, but the point was that he was very aware of that. So I understand it's hard, but I think those people live a lot more fulfilling lives. And the flip side, there's a lot of people, I think there's a huge amount of depression in the West because people are not living meaningful lives, and despite they're not particularly having difficult lives, I wouldn't say a lot of the people who I talk to who are suffering are really well off, but they can't handle people looking at them the wrong way or something. They get upset because they think somebody thinks something about them, and it just goes on, and then their world becomes very small in terms of social circles and things. This is a very, very common problem. So I do think we have these first world problems in the West that we struggle with, and they're not particularly big problems, and we struggle with them because we lack meaning. Basically, we become brittle because we don't stand for anything, we don't live for anything. But when you do have meaning, and I'm just explaining what psychologists have already accepted anyway, that when you have meaning, and they've demonstrated it as well, like in many ways. So Viktor Frankl demonstrated it when he was or noted down examples of it when he was in Auschwitz. So he was a Jew who was in Auschwitz, and people literally died when they lost meaning. Like, for example, one person thought that for some reason that the war was going to end on a certain day, and then they would escape Auschwitz, and the day afterwards they died. So meaning is incredibly powerful. We don't fully understand, but I do want to kind of move on to the next bit. I'm just going to try it. Let's see what happens, right? Because it's the key bit, right? Okay, so this is what I call test your bias, right? And so what is the point of these talks? It's like to really test ourselves about are we really seeking the truth, and to what extent are we going to follow through with it? And I've got no idea how this is going to go, but I'm going to say, would you join mainstream media's most hated religion? Do you want to guess what that is?
Science.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say Islam, but maybe I've got the bias being a Muslim. We get the brunt of
science. Science is not a religion. Just clarify that. But I'm sure the media would see the science as religion. But yeah. Just to clarify that point.
All right.
Reason.
So I'm going to put
atheism.
I'm going to put forward a few ideas. You might dispute them, but we'll see. Okay, so I'm gonna put forward a couple of ideas about different ways of thinking, and I say which one would you pick based on those ideas, right? And let's just see how it goes. So I'll start with atheism, and I'm trying to be super short. What is atheism? It's the belief that you can see there is organization in the universe, but believe that nobody organized it. That would be my summary of atheism. Then I'm going to move to the next one. You've got Christianity stroke Judaism, where they both have similar, they both believe in the Old Testament, right? Except for, they order things in a slightly different way, but they basically believe in the Old Testament. And in the Old Testament, it's against science because they both, in Genesis, it says the universe was created in 6 days. And this is basically 6 24-hour days because they've got the sun rising and the sun setting, even though there's no sun, but that's another story. Okay, so you've got Christianity and Judaism, which is against science, but cannot disprove science. So they make no real effort to disprove it. Then you've got Buddhism. I'm just rushing kind of through the main beliefs that exist at the moment. You got Buddhism, which is where Westerners don't follow Buddha. This is a really interesting one. Western Buddhists, because there's always these kind of Western flavors of teaching. So they take the original teaching and do something with it. And so you might say, how do I know that Western Buddhists don't follow Buddhism? Because they make up quotes about Buddhism, and you can check this out yourself. It's very incredibly rare to almost non-existent to see a quote from Buddha. If they ever quote him, they'll misquote him completely. But mostly it's Westerners making up all sorts of quotes, and they'll have a picture of the Buddha and that something on Facebook you'll see like a picture of a statue of Buddha in the background doing the pose, and then there'll be a random quote from a Westerner, and that's Buddhism for Westerners. So not even the Dalai Lama quotes the Buddha, by the way. So that's kind of like you're not even following the religion, so there's not much debate there. Then we're going to come to Islam, and this is what I'm going to say about that, and I'm intrigued by what you say about this. So first of all, it's got no contradictions with science, right? So this is a claim, and we can check this up afterwards, okay? But I've never heard anybody prove that it has a contradiction with science. But not only that, it makes very specific claims that have been proved to be true, such as it described a Big Bang. There's a verse of the Holy Quran. So afterwards in the description, I'll give a link. And they're not like Nostradamus, where you say lots of random stuff. These are really specific things. It says the whole universe was in a closed up mass and expanded, right? It's pretty, and then the next part of the same verse says all living things are created out of water, and that's what, if you're looking for life on Mars, what do they look for? They look for water or signs of water, right? So it's really scientific, and it's never been disproved. So that tells you two things about the Quran, which is that there must be a God who wrote this book. So there's who else could have? These are two little examples of many scientific truths that could not have been known at those times. It was like it just was not known, not anything near it. Okay, so for me, that's just, at least I think logically, like how can all these scientific things be known in this one book? So precisely written, unless there was a God who wrote it. So that kind of proves there's a God, and there was a God who wrote this book. It wasn't just a man-made book. Most converts to Islam in the West are women, and who realize it is the only religion that has biologically or nature-aligned rules, okay, which save families. So we've got a destruction of families in the West because we completely ignore the realities of the differences between men, women, the roles they're supposed to play. So that's really important. What was another thing? and therefore let women be mothers to therefore take care of or create a healthy next generation, which is completely undervalued nowadays. It's like, let's do a job instead, follow a career instead. Um, it is a religion that doesn't bend with human fads such as homosexuality, which people might say, "Oh, how can you call it a fad?" Well, which deprive children of a father figure if, for example, they have lesbian parents. Just one example, and you might say we underplayed that as well. But if you realize one of the biggest issues with gang violence, if you study gang violence, is because they lack father figures. So these are all really important things that
Okay, at what point am I coming in here?
Yeah, sorry, I'm going to try to
'Cause
quickly. Yeah,
so
I
far
know.
you've gone on a very intriguing and
Okay, and then my last thing
debate-invoking
is, it's the only
talk, but
anti-racist religion. That's it.
what points
That's it.
can I?
Your turn. Your turn. That's it. So what?
You've
So
you've just
because
hit
that I've had a
the
lot
question.
of points. Yeah, sorry, and
You had
this.
an awful lot of points
Yes.
and no opportunity that
Yes.
gave the impression that there any opportunity for me to
Yes.
come in at any point, which was a little bit worrying.
Yes. Sorry.
But
Go on. I had only a few points, and I did try to keep it super short, like summarized atheism in one sentence. But anyway, go on. Yep.
You've hit upon many different subjects.
Yes. Go on.
Many you've we've gone from one question to about
So
10
the point is
questions.
that I tried to summarize a whole bunch of ideas as quick as I could. Maybe I shouldn't have done it like that, but it was like, if that was true, and is there anything that stands out? Let's just talk about it. We're truth searching right now. Immediately, what is one thing that stands out as incorrect from what I said?
Well, wow, just
Or maybe it's a bit hard though. Go on, go on.
well, I wasn't prepared for such a myriad of observations,
Yeah,
firstly.
yeah,
But I think science is also a very crucial element of seeking truth.
yeah,
And its motivation isn't to support the current philosophy or ideology or religion. It is, as I've said before, all religions across all time and all planets will always be unique and different and important. But all the scientists in those different religions will all come to the same conclusion as a descript when coming to describe the actual fundamentals of reality around us. So yes, I'm sure in the Quran it does describe the beginnings of the universe, which is incredible to hear and very important. But also, any religion with any scientists
There's
in it.
no religion that describes it. In fact, I gave you an example of Christianity which completely gets it wrong. And in fact, every religion gets it completely wrong.
But
And it's natural.
but
If you make it up, it's going to be wrong, isn't it?
but the Christian scientists,
Yeah.
my point isn't the actual religions. My point I'm trying to make is science is separate from the majority of religions. The point I'm trying to make is no matter if you're a Christian scientist, Muslim scientist, or a scientist from the planet Krong, even the scientists from the planet Krong will all agree about the Big Bang, the origin of the universe,
But that's
atoms,
not the point. Okay,
physics.
the point is how.
What is the point?
If we're looking for the truth, science is just a tool. We can check if
Science
this
is
is
just
right
a
or
tool.
wrong, sort of thing,
Absolutely.
right? Okay, so all I'm saying is, this one point then. How on earth did this and many, many others, so for the age of the earth, precisely given in the Quran again as 1/3 of the age of the universe? I could just keep going on, and there's many, many like that. And you could check out the numbers, and it's exactly right. How did that this book come up with so many very precise reasons? Scientific facts.
Well, that is obviously. You'll have to send me the link of that
Sure.
one, because I'll be interested. I'll definitely be interested into reading that. And if
Yeah.
whether it's true or false doesn't obviously change my answer.
Let's
And the
say
answer
it is
is
true. Then what? Let's hypothetically. Then what?
hypothetically, if it is true, then it doesn't mean. If it is true, it doesn't mean that cause and effect has any. Oh dear! Hang on, let me get this right.
So if there's 1,000 facts that are signed, so the point is when we're looking
But
for
what
the truth.
hang on? What about all right? What about all the things that are wrong? Is there anything wrong in the Quran?
Zero.
There's nothing wrong.
I challenge you to find one thing that's wrong. That's exactly what I said in my first comment. But I made loads of comments, didn't I? I said I started off with there's no contradictions with science, and on top of that, got very specific claims. So yes, this was an experimental thing, and I ended up talking a lot. Actually, you know what? Half an hour whizzes through, doesn't it? Go on.
You said, what did you say? I've lost my notes now.
Yeah.
You said about truth seeking that
yes.
Thinking about knowing everything
yes
is not good.
Sure.
At the beginning of this conversation, at the beginning of this talk.
Yeah.
So isn't that a contradiction of your earlier statement about truth?
What, in which way have I contradicted? I'm not saying I know everything.
No,
I'm just saying,
I'm asking you.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it is a contradiction.
Yeah.
I'm asking you, is it a contradiction? Because you said about truth seeking.
Yeah.
Is knowing that you do make mistakes and knowing that you're not always right and making I regard
so
as.
we're both seeking the truth right now. What I'm really trying to push for is like, what is enough? I feel like not enough people jump for the truth when they see it. So I'm saying, even hypothetically, right? If you got 1,000 facts that are scientific in this book, let's just say, right, and they were impossible to know, then what would you do about it? For me, I'll be like, all right, it's the truth. That's it. It should. I think we should jump for the truth we shouldn't stand back from it. Otherwise, we're not being honest enough. Is my opinion. Like, what else? What other reason? What other explanation could there be for a book to have that many scientific truths and many other truths that cannot be known? Or there's so many interesting facts and logic about it, even historical truth, scientific truth. Like, shouldn't we? What I sometimes feel is we're like too careful about accepting the truth or taking too long to accept the truth. And the way I put it is that if you've got like how much effort do we make to how much effort or time do we take to choose a gym? It might sound really strange, but I describe Islam very much like a gym. Because what is a gym? It's a place where you get better or try to make yourself better. You get the idea. Gym. So Islam is a way of life to improve yourself, right? So we don't take too long to accept which gym to choose based on whatever evidence we have. And if I'm saying that really, from what I've said, there's really no comparison between, let's just say theoretically, Islam and all these other religions, would you accept Islam if it was so blindingly, obviously better, at least, and you couldn't find any contradictions, and it had all these scientific truths?
Well, I'm, as you know, agnostic, so that question is redundant.
No, it's not. You're not. Okay, so a seeker after truth is not anything. I'm not permanently a Muslim. I'm not permanently. So I was an atheist a while back as well. We cannot say I am X, we have to always be ready not to be our position if we find alternative truths.
Just to quickly go back to,
Yeah,
I'll come back. I'll come back to that. But
yeah,
just to quickly to talk about how Quran is so more sophisticated when it comes to science.
yeah.
It was written much later than the Bible was, and also on top of that, the Muslim scientists were some of the greatest minds in our civilization, and so
Well, it's kind
then
of not. It wasn't that really like that. It became the greatest civilization from absolutely nothing. So, as far as I understand, the Quran was the first Arabic book written because it's such a backward nation. There were just tribes that were just killing each other all the time, and it came from absolutely nowhere to become that greatest scientific nation. Okay, but it
yeah.
was not before that. It wasn't natural at all. It was like absolutely out of nowhere. And because of
And
this Islamic teaching that encouraged that the that scientific endeavor basically. So
and
it wasn't just by default. It wasn't going to happen otherwise. Is what I
but
mean.
it,
Yeah.
my point is that it was written much later than the Bible, so there was
Okay, so I'll give
definitely
you an example why that's redundant and doesn't make sense. Because, for
okay.
example, Einstein absolutely hated the idea of an expanding universe, right?
True.
This is 50 years ago, and Einstein was not happy with it. And the Quran talks.
Older than 50.
Oh, sorry, maybe I've got my numbers right. It's a bit more than
Yeah, yeah.
50,
It's
70.
more than 50.
Einstein.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. All right, we'll check the numbers, but it's not more than 100, right? Okay, and the Quran
Definitely.
much is 1,500 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
1,500 years old, somewhere in between, right? Okay, and the Quran talks about the expanding universe, and already talks about black holes. There's so many things it talks about, so it is kind of irrelevant that time difference, considering. Do you know what I mean? Like,
A lot can happen in 500 years.
no, but
A lot. Especially
no,
when
but
you
do you
got great
understand
minds
that? Okay, let's
in
say
the East.
Einstein was made his theory of relativity 70 years ago. Let's just say, right? Let's pick a number. 70 is good enough, right? Okay, he was not happy with the idea of an expanding universe
Mm-hmm.
that time, and the Quran talks about it 1,500 years ago.
Can you send me? Can you add the
Yes,
link
I
to the
will.
bottom of this video?
Yeah.
At the bottom to the video on YouTube, when
Yeah.
you add the link to just so that everyone can reference that instantly, because I think that's obviously very important.
Yeah.
And I mean, the
But let's just
Einstein example.
because I've taken too long. I'm always trying to work on the format because we're kind of past the half hour. I'm purposely putting you on the spot, but I won't put you on the spot again.
No, I don't mind.
Let's just say, yeah, okay, sure, exactly. Say that, prove true. I give you the reference, and you find it, and you see it. Then what? At what point would it be enough evidence to accept Islam as the truth? Because I think it's a really important question if it does have the answers to all the world's problems.
Again, you're speaking to an agnostic person, so that question is is mute.
All right, cool. All right,
But
I'll
but
leave
if
that
you
as it.
ask,
Yeah,
if you ask if you ask the audience who are
yeah,
viewing this channel that
yeah,
question,
yeah,
then it's important. But you're asking me as an agnostic, and my only answer to that is that science has always, as I've described just a moment ago, been free of philosophy or any need to believe in some higher power or existential intellect, but in actual fact is or revolves around the individual becoming one with tools and development and understanding and growth, and from that point of view communicate to the community, who then can test hypotheses through measurements, and if the measurements are repeated and agreed upon, therefore truth is temporarily agreed upon. Remember, science is not truth.
Yeah.
Science never claims to be truth. There's a misnomer to that.
Yeah.
Science is not truth. Truth, as you perfectly described at the beginning of this video, which I completely agree with, by the way, isn't about saying I know what's right or wrong and therefore it's done. Because as you said at the beginning of this video, that's a dead end. But what science is definitely says we don't know the truth, but what we do know is collectively, as of today, whatever day that may be, is the best of we can possibly ever achieve of a truth. Sure. And tomorrow, that could be completely thrown out. But just to
clarify, when you say you're agnostic, that is a belief position, isn't it? Do you agree? That's a belief.
It is.
I'm not agnostic, and that's my belief. Go on. Yeah.
It is from my point of view, as I've said to you before, off video and on video, is I believe fundamentally that as a human being, is incapable of understanding the mind of a God if a God does exist. That's completely out of my remit because I am merely human. The only mind that I believe that can understand a God is a God if a God does exist. As a human being, it's always going to be interpretation, and as a human being, therefore, all interpretation is fallible.
Sure, I agree, and I'm not going to say any more because we're going to go to the next interesting question, which is, why is lying profitable? Go for it. So this is the question.
Thank you very much. Yeah. And I mean, it links in beautifully, dovetails in beautifully to what we've just been talking about. Yeah. We've been talking about trying to seek truth and from our different interpretations, how to achieve that. Now we come to the lies. Why in our society has lies become so profitable? And just recently we've had Alex Jones not go to prison, unfortunately, but being fined, shall we say, £50 million for lying about a school shooting, because we were talking about school shooting on your video not too long ago. Alan Jones went on air almost instantly and started making up these lies of these parents of children that were murdered by a crazed far-right gun extremist. Alan Jones were going, no, none of this happened. We don't need new gun laws. What is actually happening is that these parents are paid actors, and they're just trying to bring the end of mass gun laws. There's a lot of background noise going on.
That's why I was going like this, because I was like, when is that thing going to go past, please?
It's your end, is it?
Yes, it is. It's some crazy. We have some crazy vehicles around here. It's a farming land. Let me just close the window.
Okay. Can you still hear me?
Correct. You carry on.
So Alex Jones, who has his own TV show, has made millions upon millions of pounds lying about Sandy Hook, about other conspiracies, because he realizes that the bigger the lie he makes, the more bigger his bank accounts become. And at the end of the day, he is not for truth. He has no interest in truth. And when truth was actually asked of him from before he went to court, they asked for the evidence that fortified his claims about Sandy Hook and these murdered children, and he couldn't, obviously, because he hasn't got any, because he was just making up anything that comes off the top of his head. Because that's the thing is, everything he made off the top of his head made him rich as a human being. We should punish that fundamentally when people are making money off lying. There's no way that should be allowed to exist. But sadly, it does exist. But as proof that some sort of rules exist in our society in the West, he's now been tried. He's been tried and will be continually tried, because this is only case one, and there's other parents as well. And he's been hit by a tune of 50 million. But even when he was in court, he couldn't stop lying. There's always going to be people in society that can never stop lying. And we, how do we, as you and me, how do we stop these people from becoming rich? You can lie. I don't mind people lying, but you shouldn't be rich getting off lies. And the media in the West, they're no different to Alex Jones. Donald Trump, no different to Alex Jones. And the Parliament that you just described at the beginning of our video as well, no different from Alex Jones. All of these people come from the same philosophy. All of them come to the same conclusion, which is lying will make me rich, both money in monetary terms and also in political terms. Both are the same thing, really. That's the same coin, side malarkey. So I think if we can successfully curtail these lives and ask for evidence, just like Alex Jones is now experiencing, way too late, but now experiencing, this must be translated and transposed to anybody who has influence, of course. Again, not just the random person on the street, but the person that actually is profiting through in politics or with money. Then that's where instruments of reason should be presented, and punishment, as in you lose all that bloody money you've made from lying, seems very, very reasonable reality to be placed upon such an individual like Donald Trump. Anything you'd like to? Right, yeah, I'll throw it open now. Let's.
Yeah. So my thoughts are somebody like Alex Jones. Maybe it's me. My impression of him, he was a bit of either a nutcase or nobody. I'm not sure how many people took him seriously. So annoying, this background noise. But anyway, but like, so he made some claims against. Was it? I keep forgetting. Was it a shooting or something? A school shooting?
Sandy Hook shoot.
And he said what? That it didn't happen, or what was it? He made some sort of claim, right?
He made the claim that the families were all just lying, and the reason behind that was so that gun laws would not change in America. Alex Jones was defending the National Rifles Association and the wealthy. Capitalism in this sense, of course.
Sure. So I just my general feeling was like not many people even cared what he said, and so but okay. My general point is that I think lies and falsehood collapses really easily like a house of cards, because psychologists will tell you that to tell a lie is a lot of hard work, because you have to maintain a narrative. In each part of that narrative, there's a whole story behind that, and it just goes on and on and on. You have to keep up this charade that's really hard to keep up. It's just like a house of cards. You knock any side or any part of that lie, the whole thing collapses, and it's really hard to maintain, and it doesn't last long. And I think that's kind of important to realize, that truth always wins. I think that's really valuable for me to believe.
But you need.
Yeah, I just think that he's irrelevant. My short version is Alex Jones is irrelevant, and
Which Alex Jones has his lies has meant these parents have had to move across the country to escape Alex Jones followers,
right?
And they've caused untold misery and horror against parents. These parents had children. Children are fundamental, and when you give birth, this child in front of you is the most precious, wonderful, life-confirming moment in reality, and each day is a blessing. And sadly, these parents had their children killed from them. And Alex Jones jumped on it to make himself a load of money. Millions of people believed Alex Jones.
Right.
Millions of people gave Alex Jones hundreds of millions of pounds, which is now why he's been fined 50 million, and that number is going to go up all the time. though in Texas these laws are a little bit more complicated than that, though. But yeah, he's worth between 150 million and 200 million, not from doing what we're doing right now, by the way, because what we're doing right now, we're not going to get 100 million. But if you and me decided to start lying, guess what? We're going to get rich.
Something doesn't add up. I don't understand. So these children got shot in a school, and
Correct.
Alex Jones said it didn't happen. Or
Correct.
What? How? But that doesn't make any sense. Then what? Where are the children? Then it doesn't add up. So I'm saying it's so nonsensical that how can he get funding for? I could just say I've got two noses. Look at that. I've got two. But nobody's going to give you £100 million for it. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me.
If one of your noses was going to make a rich person even richer, therefore you would suddenly find yourself being funneled lots of money and encouraged to be listened to. If your nose, your second nose, was a nose of touching things to make it gold, then maybe suddenly you're. I mean, if you and me started lying, it's like a speaker's corner. If you and me started being dramatical, started lying, and started encouraging hatred and violence and repression of other human beings, we would get rich off that. If we manufactured some sort of fight between us two each week, we're going to get rich.
Yeah.
But if you and me talk to each other and have an intriguing discussion with each other, yes, we will disagree, by the way, clearly, as evidence in the last half hour, but we've done it in a way which is considerate and thoughtful and leaves the audience to pondering, rather than leave the audience to think, oh, fucking just dusted him up and now is superior. No, it's just a discussion and a debate.
Okay, so in a way, it's kind of like, does lying pay? Just like, does crime pay? Do you know what I mean? Does this negativity pay off? And I'm saying it dies off really quickly. Like Trump, he made up lots of rubbish about, I don't know, I can't remember all the different things he was saying, right? And then he gets in trouble. He's yesterday's news. And so a lot of these people who are lying, it doesn't pay off. You get something, but you lose a lot. You get in trouble. And sure, you a few people might win over the short term, but I just don't think it's a long-term payoff. And I think the truth wins. And the reason why I think this discussion is really important in the wider picture is that I think a lot of people keep feeling that the dark side, as it were, the evil people win. And I'm saying that from a religious point of view, they always lose. So the history of all religions is, and you might think this is a bit of a sidetrack, but this is kind of really important for me, as in the truth always wins and falsehood and lies perishes quickly. That's the verse of the Holy Quran. The reason why that's important is if you look at the history of all religion, which is effectively trying to preach the truth of reality. So as a Muslim, I have to believe in Christianity and Buddhism and all these. They were all hopelessly weak and had no power against the most. Let's say Prophet Muhammad, right? He had no power. He couldn't read, write, and he was up against the Rupert Murdochs, let's say, of the time. So we're talking about lies, and Rupert Murdoch has all the newspapers, can spout all the lies he wants, right?
Which he does.
So what I'm saying is, all these prophets of God had the most hopeless situation, and they spoke the truth, and they won, and they won every single time. Like, look at Islam, like the fastest growing religion in the world. Even now, let's still talk on Rupert Murdoch spouting lies about Islam today, right? and all the major newspapers trying to demonize Muslims, yet it's still the fastest growing religion. My point is that the truth wins despite the lies. And
how is that helpful, though, to the Muslim family in Iraq that just was sitting down to dinner, maybe no more than half an hour ago, and their family were around and the children were there, and they were passing this lovely food over, which I've experienced from coming over to your mosque earlier on, by the way, passing around this lovely food, and then suddenly a drone hits their home and wipes everybody out. How is I'm not trying to contradict what you've just said. All I'm asking is, how does that ever get its truth and justice that they so deserved and never had? Because they've gone forever. They've gone, that's it. They've been evaporated by a Christian drone attack from the West. And there are people like Daniel Hale, of course, who...
So I'm just going to stop you for a second, just because maybe that's one of the things we were supposed to talk about before the show, and you probably totally agree with me. When you say Christian, you don't mean the average Joe Christian. We're talking about these capitalist organisations that have the label Christian, but they don't behave Christian at all.
Thank you very much for interjecting with that, and I completely concur. Just to specify my exact definition, Christian leadership, which have demonstrated that using science, their idea of science and their idea of capitalism is to create weapons and murder and hatred and constant vomiting out of lies, which isn't Christianity, and it is. And I hope Christians understand that that goes to Muslims as well, by the way, which is the Muslims are totally derailed by the Rupert Murdoch papers and by people like Bob the Destroyer, Speaker's Corner, who are one and the same entity. Let's not forget that. There is no difference between those two people, apart from one obviously being a billionaire many times over, and the other being Bob. So that's the only difference there. But
so
thank you for saying that.
Iraqis is what you're saying.
How can we help those Muslim families that are constantly being drone attacked? I believe they deserve truth, and I fundamentally believe they deserve humane, compassionate justice, not revenge, not emotion, nothing of that.
I think there's two things though there. I mean, I agree. It doesn't really help those Iraqis. There's whole discussion, you could say. How does this discussion help Iraqis? Well, I think there's two things. There's truth and there's justice, right? Now, what was it, the WikiLeaks and all those kinds? We've had enough evidence to prove that, there were no weapons of mass destruction, okay? And
another lie.
Yeah, and WikiLeaks also described all these, I think, was it drone attacks? I think there were drone attacks where they were just shooting people on the streets, kids on the streets,
Yeah, and Western journalists, and killing Western journalists as well.
Right. So the truth has come out. That's one thing, right? I mean, if it's just because Bush and son they won't admit it, right? The Bush father and son duo presidents, just because they don't admit it, the truth is out, right? But justice, that's a whole different question. And will they get justice? Why is there? That's just one example of injustice, right? Okay, many examples of injustice, and I don't think it's just to do. I don't know. It's a whole different question about why are there terrible things happening in the world, and I think that's a little bit. I don't think we could do that in about 1 minute, but I think the truth does come out because it's really hard to hide the truth.
truth came out because of Westerners,
Yeah.
and those Westerners are now all in prison forever.
Yeah, you're talking about I forget everybody's names, but with Mr. WikiLeaks, what's his
Alex
name?
Mustange,
Yeah, yeah.
Mustange. He's now, that's it. His life is all
Yeah.
because he told the truth. He, a Westerner, not American,
Mm,
not English, and yet somehow is permanently in prison now in England,
mm,
soon to be permanently in prison in America, where he will be tortured to the end of his days. And his crime was telling how the Christian leadership wholesale was slaughtering Muslims. That was his
mm,
crime.
mm,
Wow. I mean, the justice. I'd just like to say what I think justice looks like. Justice looks like non-violent, just to clarify that, and it
mm,
looks like a human rights courts where people like Trump and Tony Blair and are not above any law. They gets in their way of genocide, but actually have to conform to law. Hitler had to conform to law, by the way, and that's why as soon as he got in power, he destroyed the law because before he was a he never was elected officially, by the way. He was elected with the help of the Catholic Church, the Catholic Christian members of Parliament bolstered his vote, meaning that he could gain power. And with the Catholic help, he ripped apart all the rules that I've described, and therefore instigated a mass slaughter of the Jewish people, who have been just recently, relatively, freed of the horror the Catholic Church and had put them through for nearly 1,000 years, and the Muslims in the West, because obviously there's been the Western Muslims as well, and they were the Muslims and the Jewish, and I'd imagine the atheists and agnostics were all been condemned for nearly 1,000 years and forced to wear stars for almost 1,000 years. This wasn't just a recent invention by Hitler; it was in actual fact a continuation of the Holy Roman Empire, the First Reich. So, truth, that's truth. Justice, no one should be above the law. Would you agree with that, no matter your religion or if you're a socialist or philosophy
yeah, of
or
course.
anything?
Believe in absolute justice. That's true.
Yeah.
I suppose we could bring that up another show. Like, why is there injustice in the world? Is there any rationale? Is there any way of overcoming it? I suppose. But anyway, we have our weekly meetings outside this one. We can figure that one out. But yeah, that's yeah. Any other thoughts about this particular question?
Um, I think that people like Alex Jones has been should be punished accordingly, as I hope he is, but unfortunately that's still to be determined. But his just as a quirk and just slightly as a humorous note, one of the funniest moments in U.S. legal history happened, which is Alex Jones' own lawyer gave up all of Alex Jones's telephone data accidentally to the opposition. And the funny thing about that is,
Hmm.
firstly, you don't want your own lawyer to stab you in the back, which
Hmm.
is in effect what has happened, though possibly not literally. Has meant now that Alex Jones will be facing horrendous questions from the 6th of January committee, because Jones said none of these text messages or emails ever existed. So even if Alex Jones now was never to be persecuted rightly for the horror he's committed over the mass murder of a school in Sandy Hook, he now will face some horrific legal incidents in the foreseeable future.
Cool.
Voila.
Yeah. Well, good news, I suppose. At least some truth has prevailed. At least. At least.
Yes.
Yeah. Um.
Yes.
So outro would be, well, I just like saying thank you mainly to, first of all, Dust. Really appreciate your time. Um, it's kind of just a great partnership we've got here. So thankful always. And secondly, thankful to all the viewers for watching regularly. Do press the like button. I suppose I should say that as a YouTuber. It
Thumbs
does
up.
it helps the algorithm, right? We're not making money out of this. It's kind of like, how do we put more useful information out on YouTube, and answer important questions? So if you like it, subscribe and all that kind of stuff, then maybe YouTube will help us out and tell more people about it through their algorithm. So anyway, so thank you very much, and do check out all the other happiness classes and discussions at bigquestionsanswer.com. Do comment, get involved in the discussion. This is not the end of it. Me and Dust and others are really happy to engage with you in the comment section. Yeah. And finally, I suppose I always put lots of useful written summary answers of what I put forward, at least, and maybe later on we'll get Dust to do the same. It's kind of a new partnership, so we're figuring things out. In the description, so if you like, following a little summary, that's there as well. But anyway, let's end it there. Thank you so much. I'm going to end this recording. Let me just figure out how to do that properly.
Let me say goodbye.
Oh, yes, go on. Yes, sorry, I'm so rubbish at this outro thing. Go on, please.
Well, that's it. Thank you very much for hosting this incredible chat show. I hope other people are inspired to do equally as powerful and wonderful videos as you're doing. And you may not agree with me, you may not agree with him, but I think you can agree that this is generally a debate, and this is generally the Better Speakers Corner. Subscribe if you want to stay wise.
You should just do the outros. You're just much better at it. Anyway, I'll end the recording there. Bye.